Welcome to the ExecMBA podcast. I'm your host, Brett Twitty, and you are listening to a new episode. On this episode of the podcast, I'm excited to share my recent conversation with Dan Biga. Dan is a graduate in our Executive MBA Class of 2021, and he and I recently connected to talk about his MBA journey, what led him to Darden, the impact of his Darden experience, what he's been up to since graduation, and so much more. I think you're really going to enjoy this conversation. So without further ado, here is my interview with Dan Biga. Dan, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Brett. It's great to join you.
Well, it's great to have you here. You're in Chicago these days, right?
I am. Yeah, my spouse and I moved here in December of 2019 after a brief stint in Virginia. And family's here. It's home. It's great to be back. The weather is brutal. I think earlier this week it was 22 degrees, warmed up a little bit, but winter is upon us, it feels like.
You mentioned Chicago is home for you. Is it different being there now as, adult working professional? I mean, does it feel like home in a certain way?
Yeah, I grew up in Dayton, Ohio, and then moved to Chicago really for school. I got recruited to play soccer at Loyola University Chicago, and ended up meeting my spouse there. She was on the women's team. So we were kind of like the couple that met on the soccer team, and we've been together ever since. And her family is from Chicago. My family actually moved, or many of the members of my family had moved from Dayton to Chicago. So now we have this kind of extended family here, and amazing friends. And I definitely consider it home now.
All right. Well, tell us a little bit more about you and your background. How would you describe yourself?
Yeah, I would describe myself as somebody that's kind of shaped by the different experiences I've had. I'd say my professional career started really in the Marine Corps. I served 5 years in the Marine Corps from 2011 to 2016. Made the decision to leave the Marine Corps in 2016. And of course, moved back to Chicago. One of the reasons why I left the Marine Corps was to be a little bit more present for family. And I ended up going to Chicago Public Schools career fair, got a job teaching high school English in Chicago Public Schools, did that for a little bit, and then really took a step back and kind of figured I needed to buy myself some time and space to really figure out what my post-military journey looked like. My spouse and I, we ended up moving to Virginia at that time. I joined Deloitte Consulting, did that for about 2 years, and then made a difficult decision to leave Deloitte and started my journey into kind of the nonprofit social impact space. All that time, I was at Darden, going through the Executive MBA program, which was a definite period of growth, I think, for me. And then about a year and a half ago, I ended up coming back to Deloitte. I'm now working in a leadership development role focused on the firm, supporting the firm's social impact programs. And we can get more into all of that here in a little bit.
I'd forgotten that you were an English teacher for a couple of years. What was that experience like?
Well, it was amazing. First off, I'm still in touch with many of the students that I had, even in that short stint as a teacher. I have always been a big proponent of the importance of education. I've always been passionate about the field. I studied it at Loyola University, and the Marine Corps was something that I felt really compelled to do, and I didn't go right into teaching. But having the opportunity to get into a classroom after being in the Marine Corps was frankly one of the best experiences that I could have had. It really took me back to kind of leadership 101, which I think is building trust with people. I think when you're in the military, you walk into a room and people your personal brand is really on your uniform. They can tell you what rank you are, like, where you've deployed to, what training you've been to. But when you walk into a classroom with sophomores and seniors, and you're just, wearing a button down and a nice pair of slacks, you just better be real, and you better figure out ways to figure out how to build trust with your students. And it was just an amazing way to get out of the military. And I'm forever grateful for the students that I had. As a teacher, your job is to teach them, but I think oftentimes your students can teach you just as much.
You mentioned you were an English teacher. Are you somebody who reads a lot? Do you stay connected to that?
Yeah, I definitely stay connected to it. I think I was first drawn to kind of education in English because of a love of writing, but yeah, I still read a lot. I don't read as much fiction as I probably should. Right now I'm reading Adam Grant's Hidden Potential. That just came out, and so I kind of like play a lot in kind of like the leadership development space in my reading. And then I'm a big kind of history buff as well. So I just wrapped up a couple months ago John Meacham's book on Lincoln that just came out. And yeah, so I still stay connected to it. I still believe that reading is just an amazing way to kind of continue to learn and grow and gain different perspectives.
So Dan, I'm curious, you obviously separate from the Marine Corps, you teach, you go to Deloitte, and at some point along the line, you started thinking about an MBA. What led you to thinking about an MBA?
So I started thinking about graduate school when I was getting out of the Marine Corps. It was a goal that I had. I applied to a single school round 3 when I was getting out of the Marine Corps. If for those of you that are in the journey of applying to business schools, applying round 3 can be very difficult, and it was difficult. I didn't get in, but it was an amazing experience to kind of go through the application process. But it kind of put me on a journey of like, let's go find a job. Let's go explore some different things that are out there in the civilian world, and then start to reevaluate what grad school might look like. And over the next 3 or so years, I did just that. I explored MPP programs, MPA programs. I even took the LSAT, explored law school. I ultimately came to pursuing the MBA because I felt like it was the most versatile for what I wanted to do. Would I have had that response when I got out of the military right away? Probably not. I think it was my experience in teaching, my experience in consulting, and volunteering with a couple different organizations that I really figured and made a decision for myself that the MBA was just the right degree for me, given the trajectory that I wanted to take my career down.
And what ultimately led you to Dart?
Oh, gosh. Well, as somebody that didn't get into business school the first time that they tried, I was incredibly intimidated by the application process. Imposter syndrome was definitely real for me. I was working in the DC metro area at the time, and I had made the decision that the MBA was the route that I wanted to go, and I just started networking and talking to people about their experiences in grad school, specifically in MBA programs. I had a conversation with you. I'll never forget the first conversation I had with you. I was in Crystal City, and I felt fake the whole time because I wasn't sure if I was saying the right things. But at the end of the day, it was the people that really brought me to Dart. And my manager at Deloitte at the time was in the program. One of my roommates from the Marine Corps participated in the program as well. And those are two individuals that, I wanted to surround myself with, them and people like them. And after having a conversation with you and realizing, hey, like, I think I have what it takes to do this, I took the plunge, applied, and it was some of the best news I've received in my professional career when I found out I got in.
Yeah, I remember that, and I think I appreciate your talking through the process you went through, because I think for prospective students, it's good for them to hear this is a journey, right? It's not just a few months; it's probably a few years for a lot of people thinking through this, and maybe also trying out some other ideas of potential graduate school options, maybe getting close to pursuing an MBA, deciding maybe not right now, coming back to it. I mean, there's all kinds of twists and turns along people's paths to this experience. So you come to Darden, Dan, you're a brand new executive MBA student. What were those first few months, if you could remember back to being a new student in the executive MBA program? What were those first few months like?
Wow. I think the biggest surprise for me, and it was a pleasant surprise, was that I was not the only one that felt overwhelmed by the journey that was ahead of us. Many of my colleagues in the program shared similar concerns, worries, excitement at the same time. And just to know that there were other people kind of navigating the same challenges was incredibly helpful. I think once the program starts and you're like off and you're running, and you're essentially assuming what felt like another full-time job. So it took some adjustment in the beginning to kind of figure out how to kind of build my schedule to make it work. I was in consulting at the time, and that can be a very demanding job. So it really challenged me to be very picky about my time, be meticulous about planning and prioritizing, and arguably, those are some of the best lessons that I took away from the program, is just being able to perform at a high level when there's a lot of different stuff going on. And then it's also important to realize, Brett, like I started in the fall of 2019, and then an opportunity presented itself to change jobs, and I left Deloitte, and moved to Chicago. So that was all happening, in those first several months of the program. And I got to say, I always felt like I had it easy, because there were some of my other colleagues who were welcoming new babies to the world, and I'm now a dad of a 16-month old, and I cannot imagine, but people do it. It's so impressive, and I think that's the power of really the Darden community, is that we're all in it together. We're all growing as individuals, but we're all growing collectively, and that was one of the things that really just pulled me towards the Darden community, and I wanted to be a part of it.
So I appreciate so much of what you shared. I want to come back to something you mentioned maybe at the outset, talking about your experience. I think it could be hard for people in a graduate school setting to say, I'm having a hard time with this right now, or I'm feeling a little overwhelmed with this right now, or kind of open up and be vulnerable in that way. But I think that is so important for people to do, because once you open up and you share that, to your point, you find a lot of other people are feeling similarly, or have those same kind of feelings. It sounds like that was your experience.
Definitely, and I think about some of those early lessons at Darden. I think they translate really nicely to the professional world. I look back on professional accomplishments that I've had, and there's not one professional accomplishment I've had that hasn't had the imprint of other people that have been either a part of my support network, mentors, colleagues, friends, confidants. And I think now in my professional career, when I don't know how to do something, I'll say it, and I'll try to demonstrate that vulnerability that we first had to kind of demonstrate when we were rolling up our sleeves Q1 during the Darden experience.
Yeah, the other thing that comes up a lot when I talk with students is this sort of psychology of the program. I think people are so used to being so high functioning and being experts at everything that they do. And now you're in a curriculum where you're going to take classes, topics that you have no prior experience with, that you may know not very much about at all. And you're having to say, like, I don't understand this, or I don't have this all figured out, or this is kind of messy. And people are not used to that kind of messiness in their life. And that's also part of the journey here, I think.
Yeah, definitely helps. Definitely helped me kind of thrive in situations with ambiguity.
So what job did you change to during the early stages of the program?
So I actually went through a couple different job changes. So the first one, when I left Deloitte for the first time, I went to an organization called With Honor. That's a nonprofit that worked to support military veterans in the House of Representatives. The ultimate goal was to decrease polarization and to help our government operate more effectively. That was the first role that I did. It was an amazing experience to kind of like see what, and not being like kind of a Washington, D.C. person. I mean, I'm a Midwest guy, grew up in Ohio, moved to Chicago. Like that's kind of how I am. But having the opportunity to kind of see how D.C. works was a tremendous experience. And then another opportunity presented itself pretty quickly to move back to Chicago. And then that organization was called Bunker Labs, and that supported military veteran and military spouse entrepreneurs and helped them start and grow their own businesses across the country. And the move to Chicago helped me or positioned me to lead up their efforts really like in the middle of the country. So I served as an executive director for you'd call the Midwest region. And we built entrepreneurial ecosystems and communities to help military veterans find access to the right resources so that they could thrive post service in entrepreneurship.
How was your Darden experience helpful to you as you were going through these things? I mean, I know there's a lot of electives that touch on entrepreneurship. Obviously, you're hearing a lot of different perspectives in class. I think about maybe your work around polarization or trying to get people, to work together politically. I can see how maybe the case method ties to that, but I'm curious your perspective on these things.
I'm a big believer. I mean, it's important to know that I've spent a good chunk of my post-military journey kind of in the veteran space. I've seen the power of individuals to go into communities, to bring people together to solve problems. And that's really like the work that energizes me now. Specifically for veterans, they're more likely to volunteer in their communities, more likely to vote, more likely to give to charity. So my focus when I was working in the veteran space during my time at Darden was to really understand how you can build community around solving a specific problem. And I think where I've really tried to grow over the last specifically couple of years, really since leaving Darden, has been to kind of still acknowledge like the importance of veterans in addressing some of society's challenges, but also figure out ways to pull in others to those to addressing those challenges. So, one of the programs I support right now supports K through 12 school leaders to help them be more effective in their school community. There's a lot of research that connects high-performing school leaders with improved student outcomes. And those and school leaders I like to think of them as like a hub and spoke impact model. They are set in the center of a school community, influencing teachers, influencing students, but also other stakeholders within that community. So then the question for me that I ask myself is like, now what's next? So, veterans have this ability to go lead change. School leaders do as well. What's the next group of leaders that I want to support? And that's kind of the journey that I'm on right now, Brett.
So what led you from Bunker Labs to back to Deloitte?
Well, so while I was at Bunker Labs, I co-founded an organization called Veterans for All Voters. The mission of that organization is to mobilize veterans to serve as advocates, to advocate for important election innovations to make our political system less toxic and more competitive. So that was taking kind of like the clear commitment that like many veterans have to continue serving, and then trying to mobilize them in a way to bring about system level changes to really change and improve our existing systems. So I did that first, and then that organization was like taken off, and it's doing really well. But life changes, Brett. And I said 16 months ago, I welcomed a little one to the world with my spouse, and I was looking for something a little bit more stable. I think when you're building nonprofits, when you're running nonprofits, it can be tough. And I think I was looking for something just a little different. And I think there's a lot of benefit to I'm still in the social impact space at Deloitte, which I'm super fortunate and grateful for. But there's always opportunities to up your game. And I think sometimes joining a larger organization can help you see some different ways to kind of tackle different problems. You can talk with colleagues that have different experiences. But when you're in a smaller organization, sometimes your network can be a little smaller. And I think being at a firm like Deloitte, there's so much expertise across different parts of the firm that I can kind of I'm in this position now where I have this opportunity to learn about how to design world-class leader development programs, how to manage them, what goes into like the back-end support of delivering really transformational leadership development experiences. And it's been an amazing opportunity. I love my job, frankly.
So I'm struck, I didn't also, I always learn so much through these conversations about what our students have been up to since graduation. I'm struck by the nonprofit that you helped get started, Veterans for All Voters. You mentioned you were not, when you came to the previous organization with honor, that you were not really kind of a DC political person. Obviously, you had exposure to it through that role. What kept you engaged with this kind of voting ish thing? Obviously, to start a nonprofit, it seems like something that you're passionate about. So.
Yeah, I think politics is actually, I have like an aversion to politics. But what I am deeply passionate about is figuring out how to make this American experience work for a vast majority of our people. And I think, my personal and professional journey has shown me different sides of American society, both good and bad, both areas of strength and areas of incredible opportunity. And I'm on a mission to position other leaders to see the problems or address the problems that they see in their communities. And that's really like my professional theory of change is I can't go and solve all the world's problems. That's for dang sure. None of us can, but all of us can keep our eyes open, see what's wrong in our own community, and then build a team around that problem set and figure out how to address it. Does that answer your question, Brett?
Yeah, definitely. And so, how did you mentioned you had these experiences that kind of pushed you to this kind of definition of how you thought about, change or what you really wanted to put your energy towards. But was there a particular experience or something that kind of stands out to you that sort of crystallized this for you?
Yeah, there's a lot of different experiences. I think so. When I first got out of the Marine Corps, I was teaching high school English 98% of my students were below the poverty line. So going from the military community where, when you're in uniform, your needs are pretty much addressed, no issues really, to leaving the military and then working in a school where there was, just a level of inequity that was based in history and community. It was eye-opening for me, and I'm like, and I grew up below the poverty line in Dayton, but my experience growing up was vastly different from the experience of my students, and I kept kind of like wrestling with these problems of like, why are these certain communities in a cycle that like can't be broken, or it's very difficult to break? What's causing that? So I'm like, so a lot of the problems that I wrestle with like have to do with our institutions and our systems designed to meet the needs of the people. Like I also think about like all of the benefits that I had received growing up. I mean, I had amazing people around me, coaches and teachers, to kind of help me navigate growing up. When I got to college, I was like a recipient of the Pell Grant, and I got a lot of need-based scholarship, and that's all because of our institutions. Like our institutions were set up to help me thrive, and I don't think that many of our institutions are set up to help all thrive. So like that's why I'm kind of on this mission to kind of level set the playing field just a little bit, so that we can ensure everyone in this country has a fair shot at making something of themselves, which connects obviously back to the book I'm reading right now. But yeah, these are the problems that I love wrestling with, and Darden was definitely one of those experiences that really started to kind of push me towards thinking through how I can, as an individual, show up in the world in a more effective way.
How do you feel like your Darden experience pushed you to that?
There's a lot of, I think everything starts with yourself and really peeling the onion back on understanding yourself. And I think that was one of the greatest gifts that Darden challenged me to do. That there are specific classes like Andy Wicks's Ultimate Questions class that really challenged me to think through the questions that I needed to figure out answers to for myself, so that I could go off into the world and show up as the best version of myself. But yeah, I think the journey at Darden was really one of self-discovery, which in turn helped me figure out what I wanted to do, and also, just as importantly, what I did not want to do with my professional career.
Yeah, I'm always struck. I will say, I mean, coming from law school to business school, I really did expect graduates to talk a lot more about all the technical stuff that they had learned. And to a person on the podcast, there is so much discussion around like their own sense of self and the self-understanding that comes through this experience. Is that something that you expected to be part of your MBA program?
Let's say I was hoping for it. But I was pleasantly surprised to kind of see how it all manifested. I did not go to business school to learn finance or accounting. I learned some of that. I might forget some of it now at this point, but I have the resources to go and get the information that I need if I need to get smart on finance and accounting. But yeah, the biggest benefit of business school for me was that self-discovery journey that it took me on. And like I said, without the input of my colleagues and professors that I revere, I mean, I still look up to many of my old professors and follow them and follow their work, and I wouldn't be where I'm at without them. I mean, that's just full stop. I think the the technical skills that we did learn during the program are definitely secondary to kind of the self-discovery journey that I was able to go on during the program.
Well, Dan, you're somebody who stays busy. Congratulations on the new addition to your family. Also, something I didn't know about before this podcast conversation. What are you looking forward to in the coming months?
You know, I am. You know, I don't know if you are supposed to admit this, but I'm in this phase of like really trying to slow down just a little bit. And like, you know, I have a 16-month-old at home, and you know, he's our world right now, and I'm trying to be as present as I can for him, and for my spouse, of course, who's carrying a majority of the load. She's inspires me every day. But you know, as I look towards, you know, maybe the next couple months, you know, his name's Gene, so Gene will be 2 next summer, and I think at that point, like maybe I'll start grinding a little bit more on some of the professional goals that I have. But I kind of I'm in this phase of my professional journey. I've a little bit of like a professional sabbatical, kind of slowing down a little bit, reading a lot, thinking a lot, writing, to kind of figure out like how I want to show up, you know, as a professional, as a dad, as a husband. And I think that's really where I'm at right now.
You mentioned writing as being an interest to you. What do you write about?
Really anything that's on my mind. So I journal. I think that's one of my practices. And through that, you know, you when there's a lot going on in the world, I think sometimes journaling can just kind of help you kind of get your thoughts and ideas down on paper. And I think one, it's good for mental health, but two, for me, it helps me think about like how I want to continue to show up in the world. I think I'm always going through this process of evaluating and reevaluating what I'm doing in a given period of time to make sure that it is calibrated in the direction that I want to go, and in terms of and also like recognizing like there are phases of life. I think sometimes in my previous self probably was like, there's one pace that life needs to go, and like go that way. I think having a little one has like forced me to slow down just a little bit and be a little bit more thoughtful about how I want to move forward. And writing just kind of helps me thoughts down.
Well, Dan, what's a piece of advice you would share with our prospective student listeners, something you would encourage them to think about as they go forth on their own MBA journeys?
I believe in yourself. You know, I think there's at least for me, I mean, I was never great at taking standardized tests. You know, I did well enough to get into Darden, but I was never good at it. So like, you know, that's just one barrier that you have to hurdle. Have confidence in your story. So like when you're writing your essays and thinking through your personal reasons for why you want to go to Darden, just figure out your story and try to tell it in a way that is authentic. Because I think at the end of the day, if you can submit an application that is authentic, grounded in your experience and grounded in your goals, you're gonna be successful. And there are so many ways that different types of professionals can benefit from the Darden experience. That you know, if you're asking yourself the question, is Darden right for me? You're asking yourself the right question. You just kind of gotta like figure out your own answer.
Yeah, I think I was talking with some of our residential students about this in another podcast episode, but there's so much noise out there on the internet, Reddit, all this kind of stuff, where people are offering their thoughts on why you should do this program or that program. But at the end of the day, it's your experience, right? So you got to figure it out for yourself and stay focused on what really matters to you. It can be hard to do, though. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's definitely hard.
Let me ask you a question as a book person. Are there any books that you've read in the past couple of years? I mean, as you've been on this journey, thinking a lot about who you are and where you want to put your time and your energy, are there any books that have had impact for you?
Well, so there's a book called The Politics Industry, which was kind of Oprah says, like, books that have wings, you read them, you throw them across the room because they're so transformational. The Politics Industry was definitely one of those. It was written by Catherine Gale and Michael Porter, who's a strategy professor at HBS. And that was the book that kind of launched my co-founders and I to start Veterans for All Voters, kind of laid out the framework for how we can bring about system level changes to how we conduct elections to really ultimately reduce polarization, but also just get things done for people in our country. So that was probably like the most transformational book that I've read over the last couple of years. But there's so many. I'm reading Heather Cox Richardson's book right now, which is phenomenal. I think, like I said, when you start to kind of anchor our current experience in history, for me at least, it gives me a lot of hope that, like, we're gonna be okay, and we're gonna navigate these challenging times and come out on the other side better than where we were when we started.
Well, Dan, thank you so much for making some time out of your day for the podcast. It's always great catching up with you, and thanks for sharing your story and for being so candid here. And also, congratulations on everything that you've been up to. That's the best thing about these kind of interviews, is I get to learn so much about what our alumni have been doing since they graduated the program, and there's always no shortage of updates. So congratulations.
Thanks, Brad. It's great to be on, and good luck to all the prospective students out there.
And that was my interview with Dan Biga, a graduate in our Executive MBA Class of 2021. As always, if you have any comments, suggestions, requests, anything you'd like for us to cover here on the podcast, we're all ears. We can be reached at exec, that's EXECMBA@darden.virginia.edu. Till next time, stay safe, be well, and thanks for listening.